As a developer, I have learned one universal truth. The simpler something seems at first, but the bigger the disaster waiting around the corner. This time, the task was as straightforward as connecting NPC animations to the movement system. What could possibly go wrong? Everything was by the book. If the character moves, play the walk animation. If it stops, switch back to the idle. Use Blend 2 to smooth transition and it should work perfectly, right? Then I ran my first test. And that's when I realized something was very wrong. Because some zombies, instead of walking, started floating upwards. Yes folks, I accidentally created the first zombies to ignore gravity. But before I get into how I turned my NPC into the floating balloons, a quick reminder. If you enjoy these devlogs, make sure to hit the like button. And if you don't want to miss the future updates, consider subscribing to the channel. Alright, now let's talk about how my zombies ended up in the stratosphere. Earlier I mentioned that something strange was happening with my zombies. Now let's take the strangeness to the next level. Everything seemed perfectly logical. If the NPC moves, play the walk animation. If it stops, return to idle. Smooth the transitions with Blend 2 and we are done. Then I ran the first test, and the zombies completely ignored the laws of the physics and started flying. No, seriously. They slowly floated up, drifting left and right like balloons leaking air. I stared at the screen, then I checked the blend value, and finally, I slowly placed my head on the desk, because I had forgotten to limit the blend value and it kept increasing to every frame. The result? Instead of smoothly transitioning to walk animation, they were transitioning straight into the stratosphere. Honestly, if I hadn't moved camera up, they might have reached Mars. And at that moment, I had to accept the hard truth. This was no longer a zombie game. It was starting to look more like a Kerbal Space Program DLC. But of course, every major bug needs proper testing, so I had my lead software tester take a look at it. Teste hazır mısın? Kerbal Space uzay programına hazır mısın oğlum? Anasını satayım. Bak, normal bir gariban zombi ekledik anasını satayım. Ama zombi ya, yemin ederim breakdance yapıyor. Bak, merhaba. Bırakınca bir gitgide saçmalıyor. Ha oyun değil ki bu.
Breakdance izle.
Şimdi uçuralım. Ananı. Gitti bak.
Evet arkadaşlar.
Bir tane daha koy.
Benim için küçük.
Ay.
İnsanlık için büyük bir adım.
Bunu zombi diyor evet. Benim için küçük, insan için salak bir adım. Hiçbir işe yaramayan zombi. Uçuyor. Aynen bu ne ya? Hatta bak birkaç tane ekrana koyayım mı bak.
Ne oluyor?
Göstereyim sana. Bunu da uçurayım. Bak. Şimdi. Ekledim. Bana gelsin. Bir tane daha bana gelsin. Bir tane daha bana gelsin. Bir tane daha bana gelsin. Bir tane daha bana gelsin. Olmadı.
Nerede lan?
Hiç stratosfere gidiyor bak. Arkadaş. Bak hareketlere bak. Bak saçmalığa bak. Yemin ederim ekran GPU'yu yaktılar Mert. Bunu uçuyor. Bak. Dünyayı yok edecekler anasını.
Bu dünyayı yok etmek olmuyor.
Aynen. Based on his expert analysis, I think we can officially confirm this bug was hilarious. Of course the problem wasn't the engine, it was me. The issue? I hadn't restricted the blend value to a reasonable range, so every frame it kept increasing, turning my NPC into an unintentional physics experiment. At that point, my developer instincts kicked in. I grabbed a coffee, stared at the screen for an uncomfortably long time, questioned why we blend the value to the 1000, and finally accepted that zombies are not supposed to be rockets. Eventually, I found the solution. Restrict the blend value within a reasonable range. And yes, after fix this, the zombies finally returned to the earth and started walking properly. At this point, the zombies were no longer floating into the sky, but there was still something off. The transitions between the animations felt unnatural. Even though the zombies were now correctly switching between the idle and walk, the blend between these states was still a bit rough. At first, the transitions were too sudden, making the zombies look like they were snapping between the poses instead of actually moving smoothly. So I made a simple fix. I adjusted the blend value to gradually increase when moving and decrease when stopping. No fancy movement-based calculations, no complex fine-tuning, it's just simple natural transition that makes the animations look smoother. And with that, the zombies finally stopped looking like a glitchy robot and started to moving like, well, actual zombies. Here is what I learned from this whole experience. If you don't limit blend values, zombies will defy physics. A tiny mistake in code can create massive unintended consequences. And most importantly, never say this will be simple. After fixing everything, the animation transitions finally worked as I expected. Now the zombies can actually work. But of course, this was just a first step. Now they had to actually find their way around the world. In the next video, I will talk about how we synchronized the animation system with NPC navigation. If you ever dealt with the animation transition like this, share your experience in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.
Switching, you can go and obtain anything you want, anything you need. Your mind's got the key ingredient, it's belief. They'll deceive with the negativity, but I just slide right by that energy.